This is Jocko Podcast number 221 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
June 15th, 2010. Members of the selection committee. It is with absolute conviction that I give my strongest possible personal recommendation to Jonathan Y. Kim's selection for medical school. There is no one more qualified to make this recommendation than me, as Jonathan was under my direct supervision as a U.S. Navy SEAL combat medic while I commanded SEAL Team 3 Task Unit Bruiser during the Battle of Ramadi, Operation Iraqi Freedom, from April until October 2006. During this time, the city of Ramadi was the epicenter of the insurgency and a place filled with fear, violence, casualties, and death. In that brutal and unforgiving environment, Jonathan's undaunted courage, tenacious devotion to duty, and superb skills as a combat medic were tested and proven over and over again. On one particular occasion, he and a small element of other SEAL combat advisors were leading a patrol of Iraqi soldiers through an enemy-controlled sector of Ramadi. The patrol was ferociously ambushed, leaving an Iraqi soldier severely wounded and lying helpless in the street. Jonathan and another SEAL, who had taken refuge from the enemy gunfire behind a concrete wall, left their safe position and stormed forward into the hail of enemy bullets. They then dragged the wounded soldier under intense enemy fire back to a secure position where Jonathan immediately began performing combat trauma care on the Iraqi soldier. Another Iraqi soldier was then wounded by enemy fire, and Jonathan provided medical care to him as well, eventually organizing the casualty evacuation for the wounded men. For his actions that day, Jonathan was awarded the Silver Star Medal in recognition of his bold courage under enemy fire. That level of heroism and bravery was not an isolated incident. On another occasion, Jonathan exposed himself to enemy sniper fire in order to attend to one of his SEAL platoon mates who had been severely wounded by an enemy sniper round that had struck the SEAL in the face. Exposing himself to the enemy sniper fire that had just wounded his fellow SEAL, and with blatant disregard for his own personal safety, Jonathan moved to the fallen SEAL, stabilized the patient, and organized the evacuation. For this action, he was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Combat Distinguishing Device. Jonathan's bold courage, calm decisiveness, and intrinsic desire to provide care to the wounded, even under the most intense urban combat imaginable, continued for our entire deployment. Even as combat fatigue set in on many of the men as they saw their teammates, friends, and brothers in arms wounded or killed time and time again, Jonathan never faltered. I know that the horrors of combat have shown Jonathan more stress and chaos than most will ever see. I also know that he handled that stress and chaos with a calmness of heart and a steadiness of mind that any man would admire. As further evidence of this, after his deployment to Ramadi with Task Unit Bruiser, Jonathan was recognized for his stellar performance when he was selected as United States Special Operations Command Medic of the Year for 2006. Jonathan has now applied his strong work ethic and sharp intellect to college, where he is performing with equal distinction, having earned a 3.98 grade point average. His remarkable aptitude for math and science is reflected in his standing on the Mortar Board Honors Society, the Dean's List, and First Honors Roll. Additionally, His dedication to service is represented in the many hours he has spent as a volunteer at both Sharp Memorial Hospital and Balboa Naval Hospital. This academic prowess, willingness to serve, selflessness in duty, and personal will to accomplish the mission even in the most severe combat situations are qualities so unique that I cannot fathom a more exemplary candidate for medical school. I am completely confident he will excel both in school and in the field and will make not only Harvard proud, but also provide the finest and most compassionate medical care to every patient blessed enough to come under his charge. I would be more than happy to answer any questions about Jonathan Kim and his unlimited potential. Sincerely, John G. Willink, Commander, Naval Special Warfare Group 1 Training Detachment. And that right there was a letter of recommendation I wrote for Jonathan Kim, otherwise known as Johnny Kim, for his acceptance into Harvard Medical School. And this was after I wrote him a letter of recommendation to be commissioned as an officer in the Navy, and after I sat on his board for the commissioning program. But before I wrote him a recommendation for acceptance into NASA to become an astronaut. And Johnny was accepted into the officer program. He was accepted into college. He was accepted into Harvard. And he was accepted into NASA to become an astronaut. And it was easy to write those letters of recommendation because the person that Johnny was and is simply an outstanding individual in every way, and it was an honor to work with him in Task Unit Bruiser. And it's an honor to have Johnny Kim here with us tonight to talk about his life and his lessons learned. And he's a humble guy, so I already know he's going to be mad at me for opening up with that grandiose letter of recommendation from all those years ago. But I will say, Johnny, you brought it on yourself by achieving so much. So, Johnny, welcome, and thanks for coming on, man. It's pretty bizarre to be sitting here with you right now after all these years.
It is. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for the kind and generous and also undeserving words. I mean, listening to that story, it seems a world away, but at the same time, it seems like it just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the way. I think that's the way life is, and I think that's the way military, for me, my military career is in chunks. And, you know, I spent a chunk of time at SEAL Team 1 as a new guy. Then I spent a chunk of time at SEAL Team 2 as a young ensign. Then I spent a chunk of time in college, then a chunk of time here. And those chunks can be years long, but sometimes they just seem like they went by in 15 minutes. So, man, your story, which you're really just in the middle of right now, I guess. Let's just go back to the beginning and go through, you know, growing up and what that was like, and we'll get through the teams. We'll get all the way up to sitting at this table, which, like you said earlier, is very strange for you and me to be in this position. And I don't think either one of us ever thought we would be sitting doing what we're doing right now.
No, never. Let's do it.
Right on, man. So, where were you born?
Los Angeles, California.
And what was the scenario you grew up in?
Yeah, so first generation Korean American. My parents immigrated to the States in the early 80s, a couple years before I was born. I was born in 84. And, growing up for me was, there were some hard times growing up. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have always kept my growth, my childhood close to the chest. Even some of my closest friends, I've never told how I grew up. And it wasn't out of shame or anything, but I think it was a little bit, I think it's always been private for me. Mm-hmm. And it's been a part of my identity. And for a lot of the same reasons why I wanted to be a SEAL, that creed we swore to never really do the things we do and not seek recognition for it. I've never, in that same vein, I've never wanted to